What's going on YouTube? It's Teej back again with another video, and today the Hurry Up Offense. Gonna preview week 12 of the NFL season. Sorry again, no Mason and JT this week. You know, it's the holiday season, schedules are hard to match up. Additionally, I have a new puppy around here. I'll flash up on the screen now. So that's been super exciting, but it also makes it a little bit harder to do a hour-long's worth of recording like Mason and JT and I normally do. So we're gonna go a little bit quicker today, get you set for everything you need to know this Thanksgiving weekend when it comes to NFL football. Starting with the 12:30 game, Packers and Lions. Here we go. Let's go ahead and make sure we're pulling up the right spread. 7.5. I'm going to take the Lions. They didn't look great on Sunday, and that's kind of where I think we're going to see a little bit of a bounce back. Less turnovers from Goff. On the other side, we saw Green Bay play one of their best games of the season. You could think, hey, they're going to build off of that. I think the defense might be able to. But I think Jordan Love ultimately is a little too erratic, and you're going to get one good game followed by one bad one. So I think all that amounts to a pretty solid win here for the Lions. I think this is a great teaser leg, by the way. I would get this down to 1.5. I think that's one of my favorite teaser legs of this week of football. Cowboys and Commanders. I'll take the Commanders and the 11 points. There's just a lot of points for the Dallas Cowboys to lay. And plus, Washington's been one of these zigzag teams. Good one week, bad the next. And Sunday was abysmal. And honestly, I don't know how quick Josh Harris wants to make a move, but if they get embarrassed on Thanksgiving Day in front of the a national audience to the Dallas Cowboys after what happened to the Giants last Sunday, this could be the last game of the Ron Rivera tenure, and then maybe they elevate Eric Bieniemy to the acting head coach. He's already the assistant head coach right now. So this is a huge game. I think Rivera's going to have those guys fired up. They'll be able to lose by, less than 11. Then we get to Seattle and San Francisco, 6.5 point contest. I think no matter what, San Francisco wins this game. I do think they are the better side, and I think, the last 2 weeks, basically, since they're bye, they back that up. And I do think 6.5, they'll be able to cover that. All signs point to Geno Smith playing this week for Seattle, which goes a long way. It's great to see Jackson Smith and Jigba get involved. Boye Mafe continues to play awesome. I'm really interested to see how Seattle wants to use Devin Witherspoon against San Francisco here. But ultimately, I think there's just too many weapons. So even if you take away one of those guys, San Francisco just go to the next guy up, right? And barring, a lot of turnover-worthy plays from Brock Purdy, I think that roster difference is enough to be able to cover this 6.5. But, I could tell myself on the other side where Seattle creates 2 turnovers, takes advantage of those 2 turnovers, turns them into points, and then they basically cover the 6.5, whether they win or they lose by less. I could totally see that playing out. This one's truly a coin toss. Another good teaser leg here for Thanksgiving, and honestly, a little bit of a spoiler there for potentially my lock of the week. Black Friday football. Here we go. The first ever Black Friday football broadcast. Amazon Prime, Dolphins and Jets. I'll take the 10 points. I'll lay it with Miami. I know I said, 11, that's a lot. I think Washington's up and down zigzag team. The Jets are starting Tim Boyle this week. And with that, I have nothing more to add. It does seem like Tyreek Hill is going to be just fine, be able to play. So yeah, I just think the Dolphins are the better side. Their offense didn't look as good last week against the Raiders, but I think they get back on track. And I think the Jets defense basically gets left on the field for too long, and ultimately they'll give up a lot of points because Boyle probably is not going to do much of anything. Saints and Falcons. Man, this is a tough one. I'm going to say the Falcons get it done. I think I like the Saints a little bit more. But, it's Jameis Winston, and we know the sporadic, games that come under his belt. So you could tell me on a world where Chris Olave has a bunch of yards and a bunch of touchdowns because Jameis is creating a bunch of big throws, and, that's where the offense comes for the Saints. But I think ultimately what it's going to play out as is the Falcons have a really solid defense. They make it a hard time running the ball against them, take away that component of the Saints offense, and then eventually it's Jameis Winston having to win the game. And it's truly a coin toss at that point. No Michael Thomas, he's on IR. Rashid Shaheed, therefore, should get more touches. And since this is a pick 'em, I think Atlanta at home is just the side I tend to lead towards, just because I know the stability that's going to come with that. They're going to run the ball well enough. I know what to expect with the offensive line. Ritter may not be great, but again, I know what to expect. He is going to be the guy starting, and they have these playmakers. So I'll take the consistency, albeit not great, but stable play that I know I'm going to get with the Falcons versus the erratic thing that might come my way with Jameis Winston. Steelers and Bengals, I'll say Pittsburgh wins this game. I think you might see a first game, OC bump. Kind of like what we saw from the Bills, where it's like, oh, Joe Brady, he's taking all the simple stuff, a lot of underneath, and, Ken Dorsey just wouldn't, all that stuff that you hear out there. I don't really buy into it. I just think they saw what happened with the Bills-Jets game week 1, and they were like, all right, let's do the complete opposite, because Josh Allen essentially threw that game away. This one I think is going to be kind of similar, but just with different narratives tied around it. I think you'll see more throws over the middle of the field, and you'll see a lot less, 2nd and 10 run plays, setting up 3rd and long for Kenny Pickett. Like I think some of the in-game sequencing, the stuff that Mike Sullivan can actually change because they're not revamping the playbook. I think you'll see an upgrade there. And also it's Cade Browning on their side. So for a Bengals offensive line that has been bad all year, it's already kind of a tough task managing that pass rush when Joe Burrow's under center. I think it only gets that much worse with an inexperienced Cade Browning making his first start. So I'll take Pittsburgh getting the win on the road. And then we get to the Titans and the Panthers. I mean, 2 teams that are both in the bottom 5 of my power rankings, so I don't have a whole lot of faith in either one of these 2 teams. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a game where Bryce Young looks solid. I'm not saying they're going to win, but since it's past that 3-point hook, that key number of 3, I think the Panthers can lose by a field goal. And ultimately, it's going to be a really interesting test for Will Levis because I think the Panthers defense has lived up to my expectations, but Jero Evero, I'm really fascinated to see how he plays up against Will Levis. I think you're going to see a whole lot of 2 high shells, a lot of cover 4. Take away DeAndre Hopkins and the big play element that we have seen Levis have so far this year. By the way, Levis with more big-time throws this year than Ryan Tannehill had all season long, might not just add. But I think Jero Evero is going to key in on that and say, we're taking that away. Beat us somewhere else. And then I'm really interested to see if Levis can play within an offense, get the ball out quick, take those underneath throws, and basically engineer a 10-play drive and get down the field, as opposed to, Nuke's somewhere down there, let me throw it to him. So it's going to be an interesting test, but because of that, I kind of think I lean towards Carolina here. The Tennessee secondary also has been putrid, so Adam Thielen, I think, could have a good game. If there's a game where Jonathan Mingo might look good, this is probably one of them. Then we get to Bucks and Colts. Not overly impressed with either one of these 2 sides. I think I lean towards Indy, 1, because they're at home, and 2, they're coming off the bye. I think Shane Steichen's a good enough coach. Obviously, this is his first bye week as a head coach, so who knows what this is going to look like. But I think he's a good enough coach to where he'll be able to work his magic. He'll get some positive results out of this one. Additionally, Baker, when he's targeting Mike Evans, has been pretty good. Everywhere else, man, it just doesn't feel like, 1, Baker wants to throw the ball there. And 2, it just doesn't have that same, okay, now we're getting chunk plays, moving on the field. Feels like all progress this offense makes is targeting 13. They don't run the ball well. And I think when you're so, one-sided like that, Gus Bradley may not be the best DC in the world, but he's a serviceable one at that. And if he knows you can't run the ball against him, I think he's going to take into account for that. You'll see Mike Evans get some extra attention this week. And it's going to be, Chris Godwin versus Kenny Moore out of the slot, which, I think they're both 2 of the better players in the slot, their respective positions, but Kenny Moore is good enough to take away Chris Godwin, too. So extra tension on Evans, slow down Godwin. I just don't see where the offensive production comes from in this one for Tampa Bay. Therefore, give me the Colts, laying the 2.5 at home. Giants and Patriots, and what a world we live in here where, Tommy DeVito scores his first win, and they're still getting 3.5 points against New England, who, by the way, this is a match between 30 and 31, my latest power rankings. So a real doozy here. I hope we see a whole lot of it on Red Zone. I don't really love either one of these sides. I don't think either one of these offenses is very good, so I'll just take the team getting points here. That's my only philosophy here. I just wouldn't bet this game. That would definitely be the move here. Maybe if you're going to bet this, defensive props, I'd be really curious to see what Dexter Lawrence's sack number looks like. I think this could be another game where he gets some pressure, especially if it's not Mac Jones, under center, and it's someone who has less experience and might hold him the ball a little bit longer. Kayvon Thibodeau is another interesting prop considering how good he looked against Washington, but more so focused on Lawrence. But because he's such a good player, the lines might be a little skewed there. Again, I don't really have a strong take either way, so I'll just take the team getting the points, especially when they're the home squad. And then we get to sneaky, one of the best games, that we've seen in some time. There have been good games each and every week, but, if you told me 14 weeks ago that, dude, week 12, Jags-Texans, this game's going to be awesome. You're going to be really looking forward to this. I don't think I'd believe you. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans getting the 1.5. I don't feel great about it, to be honest, because what we saw last week was probably the best game from Trevor Lawrence, and we saw Calvin Ridley come alive. I don't think they're going to do that again. I think last week the focus was on getting Calvin Ridley the football because the Titans have struggled at outside corner. That hasn't really been the same weakness this year. Steven Nelson's played pretty well. Derek Stingley Jr. with a pick last week for Houston. I think this is going to be more of a Christian Kirk and a Evan Ingram game, but even then, I think Houston with Jalen Petrie has a guy who can match up with some of that middle of the field production. Blake Cashman's also been awesome this season. Will Anderson may not be a stat stuffer, but he's been pretty good. And I think this is not the best Jags offensive line. And I think C.J. Stroud bounces back from the 3-interception game. So I might be buying in a stock right as it kind of plummets a little bit because everyone feels like they're buying into the Texans right now. Don't like doing that. Don't like buying at the top of the market, right? But ultimately, I think last week was one of the best games we'll see the Jags play of the entire season, and it came against the Titans, who I don't think are very good. This matchup's going to play completely different, and ultimately, here's what it comes down to. I don't think Press Taylor is as good of a play caller as Bobby Slowick. So give me the Texans. Next up, let's talk Broncos and Browns. I'm buying into this Broncos turnaround, man. And ultimately, it sounds like it's going to be Joe Flacco versus Russell Wilson. Man, almost sounds like we were talking about a game from 2013. I'm going to take the Broncos. I think this defense has legitimately turned a corner. Joe Flacco's limited. And I think if you take away Amari Cooper and force Elijah Moore and, Cedric Tillman to beat you, if he even plays, that's a tall order. Or David Njoku or the run game, that's going to be tough. That being said, the run defense for the Broncos looked putrid against Minnesota, and that had been one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL. So the Broncos are looking that bad against the Minnesota run. That could be an issue against Cleveland, who doesn't have Nick Chubb, but still have a good offensive line, a couple guys who can run really well, like a Jerome Ford, like a Kareem Hunt. But that being said, anytime you get put on blast like that on national television, I feel like the next week you see a big bounce back there. So I don't think the Broncos will be the best team in the league this week against the run, but they'll be a whole lot better. Take away that part of the offense, force Joe Flacco to beat you. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a whole lot of 6, 7, 8-man boxes to take away that run game and force Joe Flacco to beat you. And on the other side, I think Denver's offense is doing a lot of good stuff. It's going to be a tough matchup. You'll probably see a whole lot of Myles Garrett versus Mike McGlinchey because he's really struggling in pass pro. But I just believe in that Denver offense a little bit more, considering Joe Flacco's under center for Cleveland. All right, then we got to pick them here between the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals. It was a nice win last week for the Rams, but not having Geno play, close to a quarter of that contest plays a big factor in that. Also, we don't know the status of Cooper Kupp going to this one, which is going to be a big blow. And ultimately, I think Jonathan Gannon's got this team playing really, really hard. Kyler Murray's a top 5 quarterback in the NFC right now. And I think he's a good enough player to elevate a Trey McBride, who has also been coming into his own, and get the most out of Rondale Moore as a deep threat, which we finally saw him used as something more than a gadget player last week. And plus, another game back for James Conner. I think that you'll see that rushing attack come alive. And the defense doesn't have a whole lot of great names, but they're playing pretty well. Like Jonathan Gannon has them playing over expectations there on that side of the ball. Yeah, and I mean, some of the same stuff I said about Kyler Murray, top 5 quarterback in the NFC right now. I think if you're taking Kirk Cousins out of the equation, Stafford's probably top 5-ish. He's probably 5 to 7 right now in the NFC. So maybe some of the same arguments I make about Arizona, I could see where you make that argument for the Rams. Let me know what you think about that one down below. Chiefs and Raiders. This has been a matchup that historically the Chiefs have dominated. It is going to be interesting to see the Antonio Pierce effect, right? Like you hear Mark Davis is like really loving the energy in that front or in that building right now because of Antonio Pierce, and the Raiders played it really close with Miami, a lot closer than a lot of people, including myself, would have expected. And I can honestly, if you were to ask me right now who's going to be the head coach of the Raiders next year, I would tell you Antonio Pierce. I think Mark Davis is going to look at Dan Campbell and a 9-2 Detroit Lions and say, well, Campbell's not the guy calling offensive plays. He's not the defensive mastermind. No, he just brings a great culture, and he's a guy that players want to play hard for. And right now, Antonio Pierce is that guy. So I think that all kind of amounts to Antonio Pierce being the head coach for the Raiders next year. And I can see where, 9 points is a lot. They keep it close. But I'm going to say eventually it catches up to him. I also want to shout out Patrick Graham. He's always been a guy I'm super high on. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. And right now, he's doing a lot with still a defensive roster that isn't great. Like Max Crosby's all-world. You're getting Nate Hobbs playing a lot of great football too. Javon Merrick starting to pick it up this year. But he's doing a lot with more than he should be, really. Like he's doing a lot more than he should given the roster on that side of the ball. So Patrick Graham's doing a lot. Antonio Pierce has brought a different energy to that building. But I think the Chiefs defense is legit. So I don't think the Raiders scored more than 10. And I'll say that now with confidence. I don't think the Raiders scored more than 10 in this game. So I think Kansas City will be able to get up and over 20. But I don't know. Their offense has been lethargic. Need a wide receiver to step up. And honestly, if it's Rashee Rice, needs to do more than he did last week. 42 yards, no touch. Like he needs to be a guy collecting 80 yards a week. Kind of like we got accustomed to with Tyreek Hill. Different players, but you get what I'm saying. Then we get Bills and Eagles. I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I mean, if the Eagles didn't play their best game, neither did Kansas City, but they went into Arrowhead, battled through the rain, and got a win against one of the top 3 teams in the NFL per my power rankings. That says a lot. And I also think Sean Desai is going to, man, he strikes me as a DC who could get in Josh Allen's head. Also, we only have 1 game sample size of this Joe Brady offense. You're not going to overhaul the playbook. Ultimately, it's the in-game decision-making that's going to be the difference. Now, last week we saw a whole lot more underneath, yards after the catch opportunities, getting Kincaid more involved, using Khalil Shakir, no catches for Gabe Davis. Not nearly enough Stephon Diggs for my liking. So hopefully this week you see more Diggs on top of that short game stuff. It take away the opportunities that Allen could potentially be more turnover turnover prone. Also, it should be known, his PFF, turnover-worthy play rate is the lowest of his career. So he's just gotten a lot of bad luck, might I say. And basically every bad decision has turned into a turnover. So I just think this is one where we'll have that narrative continue, where Allen will make a bad decision, one or two. Maybe it'll be one bad decision, one bad break, a fumble or a ball that goes through Gabe Davis's hands like it did 2 weeks ago against the Broncos. I can totally see that playing out. This is an opportunistic Eagles defense, and ultimately they're just doing a lot of things right on offense. And, I think there is really something to knowing going into every first down, it's really 1st and 9. And, hearing that on the broadcast, I was like, yeah, I know it sounds dumb, but it just gives your offense a little bit more swagger, a little bit more confidence. It's like, yeah, well, we have one less. We know we can get one. We don't have to get as many yards as every other team in the NFL. It's 1st and 9 for us versus 1st and 10 everywhere. So and I think that mindset actually goes through that building. So I'm going to take the Eagles, and I'll lay the 3.5. Ravens, Chargers next. I'll take the Ravens here. First game, no Mark Andrews, and I think this is a matchup he would probably look awesome in. But I'm going to continue to fade Brandon Staley and really just the Chargers as a whole, as long as he's their head coach. It just hasn't been up to expectation. Long story short, now no Joey Bosa. Secondary still an absolute mess there in Los Angeles. And really, the Ravens, the only team there's only a few teams that I think could really slow them down, Kansas City included, because right now I feel like the Ravens offense, especially now with no Mark Andrews, they just don't have like a man coverage, especially a man press beater. I think Zay Flowers can beat man, but he's 170 pounds, so man presses in his game. I don't think OBJ is that guy anymore. He did look pretty good the rest of the day on Sunday, but I still don't think he's like a man press beater. That being said, the Chargers don't. I mean, Michael Davis can, but he's not the best at it. He's not like a premier press guy in the NFL. And Asante Samuel Jr. is just not going to do that either. So I don't feel like this is a matchup for the Chargers that they're going to slow down the Ravens offense whatsoever. So I'm going to take the Ravens laying the 3.5 on the road. Vikings and Bears, and this is an interesting one, right? I feel like we might start to see the Vikings come down to reality. They played pretty well against the Broncos, but ultimately, it's still Josh Dobbs. You're only going to get so far with that. And I don't know, the Bears played some inspired football, man. The offense looked a whole lot better. Justin Fields, huge bump over Tyson Bagent, who was serviceable, but Justin Fields is definitely a better player. Khalil Herbert also coming back off of IR last week. Figured to see a bigger role from him, considering the injury to Deontay Foreman. So, I don't know. I'm kind of buying into the Bears here, and I think Matt Eberflus generally has done a good job since taking over as defensive play caller. Yeah, there's the blowout against the Chargers. A couple other games where the defense has looked lethargic. But also last week, they kind of put Jared Goff in a blender and caused a lot of turnovers there. So, and ultimately, I think part of the reason I'm going to go ahead and take the Bears in the 3.5 points here is that linebacker tandem. Tremaine Edmonds is uber athletic, and then TJ Edwards is just like as smart inside linebacker as there is in the NFL. And if you limit Josh Dobbs as a runner, he's a 2-read guy through the air. And I think Eberflus can make that confusing enough, take away some of those immediate open throws, and then force Dobbs to want to play scramble QB, but basically have the linebackers to be able to match up with it and take that away. So I think you'll see a whole lot of QB spots specifically from Tremaine Edmonds. I think this is actually a matchup I really like the Bears in. And guys, that does it for our Week 12 preview. Let me know your favorite plays of the upcoming week. And I already kind of hit it off the top. My lock of the week is going to be Thanksgiving based because you got to bet on every game on Thanksgiving. I'll take the Lions down to -1.5 and then the San Francisco 49ers in a pick'em. So teaser with, again, the 49ers basically in a pick'em, and then the Lions down to 1.5. That's my lock of the week coming off of 3 consecutive wins, so looking to stay hot here. So let me know your favorite plays down below in the comments section, and let me know what plays you think I'm right on about, but also let me know what you think I'm wrong about. Love to hear all your thoughts down below in the comments section. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.